Welcome to another Unmuted, and this is a discussion that we've heard from you that you want to hear more about. Let me ask you a question. If you've got teenagers in the house, or when your kids were teens, did they ever throw a party when you were out of town? And they invited a couple of friends over, and then the friends called a friend who said, "Hey, come on over. This is pretty good over here." And then all of a sudden, there was a bunch of kids over at the house, and the neighbors are beginning to weigh in, and you find out about it all after it has happened. Well, that's kind of the situation at the border right now. People are calling their friends and saying, "Hey, come on over. The cartels will get you here. And you raise your hand, you say asylum, and then they're going to take care of you." We're even hearing today that pretty elaborate provisions that they're making for them in New York City for those that are illegally entering our country. Well, there's someone that knows a lot about this. He's a familiar name and face to many of you, Judd, who leads the National Border Patrol Council, heads that, and works on this issue every single day. Mr. Judd, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Unmuted.
Senator, it's good to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I want to start by asking you about something that's been in the news a little bit lately, and that has to do with the scam that came up around accusing some Border Patrol agents of whipping migrants, and we find out the DHS secretary was told in advance that that was inaccurate, that they didn't have whips. You want to bring some clarity to that, and then I'd love to know how that made you and other Border Patrol agents feel when you heard it.
There's very few things that's going to get my blood boiling more than this story. And to understand it, we have to understand exactly what was going on. So we have to paint a picture. So this was the biggest illegal immigration event in the history of the United States. There were thousands. At this particular time, there were 10,000 people that were camped out under a bridge in the United States. It literally looked like a war zone. I have a very, very good friend that was reporting on this issue. She has been across the world reporting in war-torn countries, and she said that she has only seen images like this in countries where refugee camps need to be set up because of just catastrophic war issues that were taking place. So there were 10,000 people that were camped out under this bridge. These agents were sent down to the river where people were crossing into the United States, and they were specifically told, do not let more people enter the United States and join this group that are camped out under the bridge. So they had 10,000 people at their backs. They had several hundred people that were crossing the river in front of them. So they were in between two very, very large groups of people, which is something that you never put law enforcement in a situation like. You never put them in between groups. You always ensure that there is a route of escape due to the problematic situation, especially right there. This situation, there were so many Texas DPS officers there because there was intelligence coming out of it that it was a powder keg, that at any point it could blow up. And in fact, we saw exactly that when these Haitian migrants were flown back to Port-au-Prince. They attacked ICE agents on the plane that they were flown back in. There was a transport bus that were transporting individuals, and they attacked the security on that transport bus, including the driver, to escape. So this was a very, very volatile situation. These agents were placed in a no-win proposition where they were supposed to do a specific job. Now, when you're on a horse, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to stay in front of people. And that's exactly what they were doing. And there were still photographs that were captured of this. And those photographs made it look like one thing when in reality it was the exact opposite. And that photographer himself said that no agents whipped or hit any individual. Secretary Mayorkas ran with this. And what's But what's even more interesting about that is the day that he got the initial report, he actually backed the agents up. But then you had President Biden come out with his rhetoric, and he accused these agents of a criminal act of strapping these people, which would have been a felony. They would have went to prison if they in fact would have done that. So he came out and he made false allegations. Then you had the vice president Kamala Harris made similar accusations, and you had the press secretary Jen Psaki, who repeated all of these lies from the president and the vice president. A couple days later, Secretary Mayorkas was notified 2.5 hours before a press conference that these photos were not correct. The photographer specifically said that they're being taken out of context, that they did not whip anybody. He still went to this press briefing, and he repeated the lies that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris said, and Jen Psaki. He backed them up, knowing full well that it was false. Now, the problem with that is when you lie to the American public, you should be held accountable. He was Senate confirmed, as you know. And because he lied to the American public, I believe he perjured himself. So I personally think that that is an impeachable offense. But when you look at that press conference, it is clear that this administration does not want the American public to know the truth. They want to withhold all of the facts from the American people because they want to dictate the dialogue. They want to dictate everything that's going on so that they get people behind them. They knew darn good and well that the actual evidence wasn't going to come out for over a year. And they knew that by that time, the vast majority of the mainstream media was not going to cover it. So they got away with lying to the American people. If it wasn't for people like you that's trying to hold them accountable, this situation would be a lot worse than what it is.
So I think it's fair to say that you and the National Border Patrol Council feel that someone should face consequences for fabricating this story and then distributing this story.
Absolutely. You know, unfortunately, President Biden's not going to be held accountable because he didn't lie. At the time, he made some very, very bad statements, but Secretary Mayorkas, he did. He had all the knowledge. He knew everything, and he still repeated everything that the administration was parroting.
Let me ask you this. There's a lot of conversation around the fact that the vice president went to the border, but went to the wrong address and never really made it down to the border to go out and work with Border Patrol. I've done that many times, and I'm so grateful that you all afford us the opportunity to go out to see firsthand. And then the president has not been down there. So what kind of message does that send to Border Patrol agents? And if they did come down, what would be the first few things you would want to show them?
It clearly shows that they do not care about the mission of the Border Patrol. It clearly shows that they want this open border crisis to continue. If they were to come down, they would see everything that we're dealing with on a daily basis. We've got to understand that at this time of the year, in a month, we should be apprehending between 30 to 40,000 people. We're upwards of 200,000 people. We don't have the resources to deal with everything that is currently taking place. And the worst part about that is this issue is solved through policy and policy alone. And the administration understands that. They know that, yet they won't give us the policy which shows that they want this crisis to continue. If you look at the West Wing right now, the political appointees in the West Wing, they come from activist backgrounds. Look at DHS. Look at the political appointees in DHS. They also come from activist backgrounds. These activists want the open border. And if we believe that President Biden is actually running this country, we're wrong. I mean, all you have to do is go back and look at his statements, especially about Taiwan. It clearly shows that he is not running this country. We've got these activists that are in the White House, activists in DHS. They're the ones that are running everything. And that's why we have the crisis right now on the border.
If you could say, here are the 3 or 4 things that need to be done today to secure that border, What is your message on that? What would you do first, second, third, fourth?
We don't even have to recreate the wheel. All we have to do is go back and look at what's worked in the past. If we went back to the Remain in Mexico program, this illegal immigration issue would drop exponentially, and the Border Patrol agents like myself, we would be freed up to go after the criminal cartels. We'd be freed up to go after the drugs. If they don't want to re-implement the Remain in Mexico, all they would have to do is hire immigration judges on a not to exceed basis. So for a couple years, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers a whole lot of money, surge these immigration judges to the border, hold people in custody pending their asylum or deportation proceeding, and make sure that the immigration process, the illegal immigration process, is followed out. If we did that, we would be able to get the border under control right now. And this administration has the power and the authority to make those issues happen. They just won't do it because, again, they want this crisis to continue.
And I've heard from Border Patrol agents the entire time I've been going to the border, which has been about a decade now, that they would like to have a physical barrier, better technology where they cannot have a barrier, and more officers, agents on the border so that they can get this under control and keep it under control. Is that accurate?
All of those things are absolutely accurate, but it first has to start with policy. When we look at this, we want to come from a fiscal aspect where we're saving the taxpayers' dollars. If we started with policy, then we would be able to evaluate what else do we need? Do we need more technology? Do we need more infrastructure? Do we need more manpower? But if we start with that first, then we're putting the cart before the horse, and we're costing the taxpayer an awful lot of money. We start with policy, which is exactly what President Trump did. Once we have the policy in place, then we evaluate on the best way to use taxpayer dollars. Otherwise, we're just throwing all this money into a black hole and not actually solving any problems.
I am so appreciative of your insight and grateful for the work that you do, both as a border agent for the past 20 years and also as president of the National Border Patrol Council. And Mr. Judd, I know that our audience is going to want to keep up with you, and they can follow the National Border Patrol agency or the Border Patrol
Council.
I'm getting this wrong. Council. Thank you for helping me out there. The National Border Patrol Council at bpunion.org. And
that is correct.
I know that you would appreciate having our audience go there because they can learn more about the great work you are doing. And our audience can also find me on social media at Marsha Blackburn. Thank you, Mr. Judd, for joining us today. And thank you all for tuning in to Unmuted.
Senator, always good to speak with you. Thank you.